Okay, viewers, we continue with the lectures. We will be working again on the political failures of the League of Nations in the 1930s. We have looked at the previous video, we have looked at the successes of the League of Nations, political successes in the 1920s. Let's look at the failures of the League of Nations in the 1930s, political failures. We used to call the League of Nations a toothless bulldog that could bark in the 1920s, they could not bite in the 1930s. Or we refer to the League of Nations as a creepy child from birth. Why call the League of Nations a creepy child from birth? Because the League of Nations could only solve problems that came up among smaller countries in Europe. For example, Poland and Lithuania. These were just small countries that were created after the First World War in Europe. Who were these countries to stop the League of Nations from solving the problem they had between them and Europe? So we discovered that the problems that the League of Nations was solving in the 1920s, mostly the political problems, were among minor countries in Europe and other parts of the world. When the great nations came up and they started aggressing nations, the League of Nations was unable to stop them. Which were the great nations? We talk about Germany under Adolf Hitler. Germany under Adolf Hitler, we have Italy under Benito Mussolini, and the Japanese militaries under General Hideki Tojo. These were the aggressors that rose to power in Europe and Asia in the 1930s that made the League of Nations become a toothless bulldog because the League was unable to solve problems that these countries were given to the League of Nations. We look at the failures of the League of Nations. We look at it, the first aggressiveness in the world, it was when Japan, in the year 1931, Japan went and invaded the Chinese city of Manchuria. And because Japanese had a policy of co-prosperity sphere of expansionism, where they wanted to expand their country and attack Manchuria for economic reasons. When they attacked Manchuria, the Chinese called for the League of Nations. The League of Nations sent the Lincoln Commission. The Lincoln Commission went and examined the area, and after examining, they asked Japan to back out of China. The Japan refused. Japan instead changed the name of the city or the region from Manchuria to Manchukuo. And when Japan changed the name to Manchukuo in 1933, Japan withdrew and was no longer a member of the League of Nations. So the League of Nations did nothing. In that way, we look at it that the League of Nations failed woefully to solve the problem between Japan and China in the Manchuria crisis. As if that was not enough, another problem came up again between Japan and China. Again, in the year 1937, since Japan has invaded China and the League of Nations was unable to solve the problem, in 1937, Japan exploited the Marco Polo Bridge incident. And attacked again China the second time. When Japan attacked China, what happened was that the government of the Chinese president at the time, the government of Chiang Kai-shek, solicit the support of the League of Nations to intervene. But the League of Nations instead asked member countries to go and assist China. It means that the League of Nations has failed because the League of Nations was formed and its policy of solving problems between nations was through collective security. When China asked for support from the League of Nations instead advised member states to give assistance to China on their willingness. So we look at it as a failure on the side of the League of Nations. Another failure of the League of Nations was, we look at the problem that came up between Italy in 1935. Italy under Benito Mussolini invaded Ethiopia or Abyssinia. Italy invaded Abyssinia under Benito Mussolini because he wanted to revenge the defeat that the Abyssinian under King Menelik II gave to the Italians in the Adwa resistance of 1896. You should not forget that Ethiopia was the only black country to defeat the Europeans. So when Benito Mussolini came to power, he ran to revenge. And in October 1935, he came and invaded Ethiopia. He invaded Ethiopia, and Emperor Haile Selassie, who was the emperor of Ethiopia, he would ask for the League of Nations to intervene and assist Ethiopia. The League of Nations instead levied economic sanctions. They refused to supply coal, oil, and steel to Italy, which were resources that Italy badly needed at the time. But these economic sanctions taken on Italy were just for 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, the ban was suspended. And the League of Nations failed because Selassie now lacked the support of the League of Nations. He went on exile in Britain, and Victor Emmanuel II was brought from Italy to come and rule Ethiopia. Ethiopia was only saved when the Second World War started, and in 1941, the British had to, with the effort of East African soldiers, they had to defeat the Italians before Ethiopia was liberated. So we look at it like it was a failure on the side of the League of Nations. We move further. Again, still Italy. In 1923, Italy accused Greece. Italy accused Greece that their general was killed in their border by the Greek. The Greek killed their general, according to the Italian. And for that reason, the Italians reacted by bombarding the Greek city or region of Corfu. The Corfu was bombarded and captured by the Italians. The League of Nations came in and instead asked Greeks to apologize for the killing of the Italian general. Instead of him to ask Italy to withdraw, Greece was instead blamed and asked to apologize to Italy for the killing of the general, and compensation was paid to Italy by Greece. So we look at it as it was a failure on the side of the League of Nations. Why do we think the League of Nations was unable to solve the problem? Because Benito Mussolini became an aggressor in Italy, and Europe was afraid of him. So the League of Nations became afraid. That is why they could not solve the problem amicably. They favored Italy because of what? They were afraid of Benito Mussolini was an aggressor in Europe at the time. Again, we move further to look at on the side of Germany. Adolf Hitler came to power in Europe, in Germany, in March 1933. Hitler came to power, and when Hitler came to power, on the 3rd of October 1933, in the Geneva Disarmament Conference, because at the end of the First World War, conferences on disarmament were being held in different towns and in Europe or cities. And when they went to Geneva in Switzerland on the 3rd of October 1933, the conference asked France that France should disarm its military. France refused and said she needed protection before disarmament. They told France that disarmament before protection, as France was refusing because she was afraid that if she disarmed without protection, Germany may come back to attack her because of their own grudges. Adolf Hitler became annoyed and he left the Geneva Disarmament Conference. When Adolf Hitler left the Geneva Disarmament Conference, that was when that he went and Germany withdrew from the League of Nations the very year 1983, where Adolf Hitler left the Geneva Disarmament Conference. Now, when Hitler left, next year in 1934, Adolf Hitler started plans to annex Austria in order to start back the union that was formed between Germany and Austria, called the Anschluss, which permitted Germany to give unconditional support to Austria to attack Serbia. In signing the Treaty of Versailles against Germany, Anschluss was dissolved and it was no longer going to exist. But when Hitler left the Geneva Disarmament Conference in 1984, he started plans to start the union back. As if that was not enough, when he started the plans, the League of Nations started quiet. He encouraged Adolf Hitler, and in 1935, since Hitler started the union, the League of Nations was quiet. Hitler started what we call rearmament in Europe. Since the European nations were instead struggling to disarm, Hitler got annoyed, and in 1935 he introduced rearmament. The League of Nations started quiet. Again, Hitler on the 7th of March, on the 7th of March, 7 March 1936, on the 7th of March 1936, Adolf Hitler took German soldiers. 550,000 German soldiers were marched into the Rhineland and Heligoland. Rhineland and Heligoland, which were German lands that were demilitarized at the end of the First World War under the Treaty of Versailles. Hitler started training these soldiers in the Rhineland and Heligoland, whom it was asked to be demilitarized at the end of the First World War. The recognition again sat quiet. Again, Hitler in 1938 finally annexed Austria. Hitler annexed Austria in 1938. Still in 1938, Adolf Hitler attacked Czechoslovakia. Because Hitler wanted to take the land called Sudetenland that was given to Czechoslovakia from Germany under the Treaty of Versailles. When Hitler attacked Czechoslovakia, the Prime Minister of Britain, Neville Chamberlain, and the Prime Minister of France, they asked Hitler that they give him Sudetenland. Hitler should not demand another land in Europe. Hitler accepted in the Munich Conference. A few months after, on the 1st of September 1939, Adolf Hitler attacked Poland because he needed to take the Danzig and Polish corridor. The League Commission against that fight, and when the League Commission started fight, they discovered Britain and France. On the 3rd of September 1939, Neville Chamberlain declared a war against Germany, and France on that very date declared a war against Germany. That led to the outbreak of the Second World War. Again, we continue to look at the failures of the League still in the 1930s, political failures. In the year 1923, the League of Nations failed to stop France and Belgium from invading the Ruhr region in Germany. Germany was asked to pay reparation or indemnity of £6.6 million at the end of the First World War, and she started paying the reparation until 1923. Germany was unable to pay the reparation. So France and Belgium went and attacked the Ruhr region in Germany, and the League of Nations started quiet. Again, in 1936, between 1936 to 1939, there was a civil war that started in Spain. And when the Spanish Civil War started, the League of Nations came out with a non-intervention resolution, which means European nations should not intervene in the Spanish Civil War. But when they looked at the resolution, we discovered that Germany and Italy, they went and intervened in the Civil War by supporting the nationalists. While Russia supported the Republicans and the League of Nations sat. So it was still another failure on the side of the League of Nations, because Italy and Germany intervened in the Civil War, but the League of Nations did not do anything. Again, 1920, the problem between Poland and Lithuania over Vienna was not correctly solved by the League of Nations, because Poland still invaded Vienna, but the League of Nations started quiet. So those were some of the political upheavals or blunders that the League of Nations was unable to solve. And another question that they can still give, they can still ask that how far did the League of Nations solve the political problem that it confronted in the 1920s? Or how far did the League of Nations solve the political problems that we confronted in the 1920s? In this question, we will be talking about MP1. We touched only the political successes of the League of Nations in the 1920s. MP2, we talk about the political failures of the League of Nations in the 1930s. Thank you so much, our viewers. Don't fail to subscribe as we will continue to work together.
Drop your comment on the comment box.
Okay. Drop your comments on the comment box so that I'll be able to carry notifications and improve on your understanding as well as on the channel. Thank you.